Donald Trump was just indicted again. I don't know how many this is. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know. I don't know where we are. But I want to talk about some of the indictments, what he's dealing with right now. And some of these indictments are kind of piled on top of each other. So I wanted to kind of go through the far right's reaction to his indictments. I want to talk about what the far right is saying about Donald Trump's indictment. I think this is the August 3rd indictment that we're going to be, listening to them talk about. But it all kind of transfers over, August 3rd, 2023. This is the general sentiment of the Trump movement regarding any of his indictments. And we're going to talk about some of his indictments up to this point, up to now. Let me tell you what he's been indicted for so far. Number 4 indictments, I guess, is what we're up to right now. Number 1, the hush money case. If you don't know this one, give you a little primer on it. He falsified his business records so that he could pay hush money to a porn star, Stormy Daniels, for a relationship that they had, if you will. It wasn't even a relationship. And from what Stormy Daniels says, it wasn't even consensual. But anyways, he paid her $125,000 or something like that to just keep it zipped. And it fell apart quickly because he jumped through a bunch of hoops to protect his stuff, to protect his assets and his everything, to prevent anybody from finding out that he did this. Well, yeah, the things he did were illegal. And he got 34 felonies for it. So anyway, that was the first one. Then we got the Georgia election interference case. That's the one we're dealing with right now, the newest one. We're going to talk about that in a second. Then we got the classified documents case. I think that was, you know what? I'm not sure which order this is in. Yeah, classified documents case, I think was number 2 maybe. They raided Mar-a-Lago. They had the FBI show up with guns and everything, and they went into his house. It's crazy. And then the January 6th insurrection case. So we're going to talk about those cases, but before we do, I wanted to listen to some of these Trump nutter butters absolutely lose their minds at Donald Trump's whole, he can't, he's indicted and he's going to jail and all this other junk. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video. So I want to jump to the beginning. This is a TV show called Flashpoint, if you're unfamiliar. It's extremely influential within the Trump movement. It basically echoes any sentiment that Trump has. Anything that he believes or feels or thinks about or whatever, these guys are the ones that actually say it for him. They vocalize his feelings. They are Trump extremists to the core. So I wanted to listen to their take on the 3rd indictment, not the newest, but damn near it. And after we listen to a couple of minutes of this, we're definitely going to be taking a look at basically the status and the quick breakdowns, the strengths and weaknesses of each case that he's facing right now. So yeah, he was indicted as of August the 15th, 2023. And we're basically just going to talk about all of it. So yeah, let's just give this a listen. Just to introduce you a little bit here. On the left is Gene Bailey. He is a right-wing extremist, and he hosts the show. Lance Wallnau is a right-wing propagandist who had his bank account frozen by the U.S. government for money laundering not too long ago. No joke, money laundering. And the guy on the right, he's the leader of some nonprofit foundation. He shows up a lot on this show. But let's just step to the beginning. So Southwest Believers Convention is Kenneth Copeland's thing, and it's this big convention they hold every year with televangelists, and they take a bunch of money from gullible suckers, and you know how it goes. So anyway, let's listen.
Yes, today, Lance Wallnau, John Graves. Good to have them here. Give them a hand, would you? Yeah. Good to be with you.
All right, so the big thing in the news is the Trump indictment that just got handed down. Lance, let's get your
Again, this is like Indictment 3 that they're talking about right now.
take first on what does this really all mean?
Well, you know, and John and I were talking about the timing of it is obvious. They scheduled the indictment and then the one that will follow probably from Georgia so that it's going to interrupt the campaign.
False. That is false. It may have the side effect of interrupting the campaign, but when could they possibly have filed charges against the guy that wouldn't have interrupted the campaign? The dude has literally been campaigning since day one. Since he exited the White House, he's been campaigning. Seriously. He's been going to rallies, and everybody knew he was going to announce. In fact, he wanted to announce before the 2022 midterms, and the Republican Party, Mitch McConnell and others, convinced him not to do that. The moment the 2022 midterms were over, he announced. Like a year and a half earlier than anybody else. Why would he do that? Because he wants the protection. He wants to be able to say this is politically motivated and all that other garbage. It's not. It's not politically motivated.
Interrupt the campaign. It's going to put Trump in an awkward position where he's a front runner, and then everyone's going to wonder about, is he too toxic to be able to carry over the finish line? But I think that it's going to have a reverse effect. I think a lot of the people that are curious enough, the independents is what you really want to look for. 7 swing states, our side's going to be out in spades. It's going to be the independents you got to look at. And you know who's going to really...
So right now he's doing a political analysis, and he says, if we can convince the independents, then we can win, no matter what. Now, that's simply false. Actually, I've come to find that independents aren't really the ones you need to convince of anything. You need to convince your side that this is a truly dire situation. When Roe v. Wade was removed or reversed or whatever, the left realized just how dire this is. They realized this is no joke. This is real. And as a result, the left came out and, you know, started voting hard. Like we saw Gen Z come out in spades and vote like all over the place. It was crazy the turnout we saw from Gen Z. Thanks to Roe v. Wade being overturned and people realizing that this is kind of a dire situation that we're in right now. So we don't need to convince the independents of anything. We need to convince the people that are already not completely unglued from reality. We need to convince them that the situation is pretty dire right now. You know, I don't like using fear campaigns or fear tactics. That's kind of what the right has a tendency to use. But yeah, I'm not going to use fear tactics, straight up. I'm just not going to do it. But I am going to lay it on the line. I'm going to be pretty clear about where we sit right now.
They're going to be listening to, oddly enough, not us, but they'll be listening to guys like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Russell Brand. And
so he's talking about people in the center. He thinks that Jordan Peterson is in the center? What world does this guy live in? In no way is Jordan Peterson in the center. And honestly, neither are any of the other people at all. But some of them have a reputation for being in the center. So, fair enough, I suppose. Like Joe Rogan has a reputation for being a centrist when he is absolutely not anymore. He used to kind of be. Anyways, keep listening here.
And they're all on the side of something screwed up with the government. This looks like a hostile government. It's irresponsible, and that's
true. That's what those people have been saying. Russell Brand, Joe Rogan even said it about Donald Trump. The indictments are unfair is basically what people who used to be centrist but are now right-wing have been saying, unfortunately. He's right about this.
Going to have a massive impact on independence.
What, John, your take?
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because the three of us have talked about this before the first indictment. When the first one came out, we talked about this is kind of the strategy of the left because it assures...
Oh, the strategy of the left, huh? Okay. Let's hear the strategy of the left.
first one came out, we talked about this is kind of the strategy of the left because it assures that Trump's going to for sure be the nominee, which they hopefully falsely believe is going to be the way that they can win. But the other thing.
Okay, I don't know how anything that's happening right now would guarantee Trump's going to be the nominee, first of all. And second of all, I don't really want him as the nominee. I will take almost anybody. I don't want DeSantis as the nominee either. He's a nutcase in different ways, but I don't want Trump as the nominee. So I don't know what he's getting at here.
Thing that it does is it damages him with the independents and with the Democrats even further. Part of why he won was because Hillary was so well defined and so well hated by the right, so they're trying to make him so well defined and so hated by the left and to bring in as many independents. And you're seeing how.
Well, it's interesting that he brings that up. He's correct in the fact that Hillary was very hated in 2016 and for no legitimate reasons, in my opinion. You know, she had some things that were questionable that she did or whatever, but every politician has questionable shit they do. And she was no better or worse than any other politician, honestly. I genuinely believe that. They ran smear campaigns against her, like nonstop smear campaigns against Hillary Clinton. It was really sad to see. But aside from that, I'm not a Clinton fan. I don't like her or anything. Donald Trump is actually very toxic, so there is some level of truth to what they're saying right now. He is as toxic as it gets. I can't believe he has 50% of the Republican primary vote right now in the polls. That's disturbing as it gets. But, that's where we're at.
Half of the Republicans in all the polls, he's holding half of them. Half of them are kind of split up between the other 12 people, and they're willing to kick the tires. But Trump, they know what they get, the good and the bad. Somebody else, they're going, is there an improvement here? And so far, we're not really seeing an improvement.
But John said.
Okay, so he's trying to give a reason to vote for Trump. We know what we get, good and bad. And with the other candidates, we don't know what we get. Is that what you're saying? Really? That's your position? That's why you want to vote for Trump over anybody else? Like I said, this show will go to any lengths to defend Trump. Like, any lengths. It's kind of embarrassing at a certain point. Like, they get down to nearly filleting him at certain points, and it's just embarrassing and painful.
That is so important, Gene. It's like what was weird.
Who's they?
The last election it wasn't that Trump was more popular, it was that Hillary was less liked. And that's to a great extent what happened. Wow. But Joe Biden is becoming the nuclear waste on the Democratic ticket.
No, he's not. Joe Biden is not less popular now than he was 4 years ago or whatever. They just think that their propagandistic attacks against him are working because they live in a weird little bubble. Or more likely, they want their listeners to believe that in the rest of the world, Joe Biden is toxic. He's not. Joe Biden's just a normal dude as far as anybody can tell. So, anyways, he's just, clutching at straws for all intents and purposes.
And the more that they trivialize and spin his absolute complicity in being a crook, the more he is going to be vilified, and you're going to see a massive eye roll. They've got to deal with their own toxic problem.
Yeah, and so
I guess he's saying the Democrats have to deal with their own toxic problem? Like Donald Trump is toxic on the Republican side, Joe Biden's toxic on the Democratic side? No, not even close to the same thing at all. They live in a bubble of their own creation and are desperately trying to reinforce that bubble, trying to convince everybody in the audience that Joe Biden is as bad as or worse than Donald Trump, hated more than Donald Trump is hated. That's simply fiction. They live in a fantasy.
Well, let me before we go any further, let me play this clip for you. The Jack Smith press conference. Watch this video.
Remember, so this is about indictment number 3. We're actually on indictment number 4, but they're all kind of getting piled on top of each other. So the third indictment, I believe, was Jack Smith's what was it? Oh my God, I'm trying to remember now. It was Jack Smith, which is a federal indictment, basically saying, oh, it was the January 6th stuff, the fake electors stuff. Donald Trump set out to overturn the results of the free and fair election. That's what it was. By sending a slate of fake electors to the Capitol grounds on January 6th. And what do you call, like, Capitol Police wouldn't even let him in the door, apparently. Mike Pence instructed them to not be allowed in, as far as I can tell. So we're going to hear from Jack Smith on the, on his announcement on the indictment. The indictment number 3.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. The indictment was issued by a grand jury of citizens here in the District of Columbia, and it sets forth the crimes charged in detail. I encourage everyone to read it in full. The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
Right, and here's the deal. They're going to, I would bet anything, they're going to take the same strategy against this that Donald Trump is taking right now. I have freedom of speech, and I can say whatever I want about the election, whether it's true or not. I mean, that's completely 100% correct. But that's not what he's being indicted over right now. What he's being indicted over are not his lies. It's the fact that he conspired to send fake electors. His words, not mine. That's what Donald Trump called them in emails, and Donald Trump's people. His, what do you call them? His errand boys and stuff. That's what they called them. Fake electors. That's what he was indicted for, sending fake electors to the Capitol on January 6th and attempting to overturn the results of the election, basically. That's what he's being charged with. So anyways, actually, since, we're a little bit further into this, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Let's hit the strengths and weaknesses of each case. We're going to start with the hush money case because it's the first one. It's at the very bottom of the list here. I just want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses in the case, okay? Cohen, the man who arranged the hush money payments, this is on Politico, by the by. I think Politico is a pretty legitimate news outlet. I've looked into it pretty heavily, and from what I can tell, it's extremely trustworthy. The man who arranged the hush money payments, Cohen, has turned against Trump. He is likely to testify for the prosecution. Prosecutors, that's one of the strengths. Here's strength number 2. Prosecutors have evidence of other hush money payments that Trump arranged to cover up damaging stories in the run-up to the 2016 election. That suggests a coordinated effort to help his campaign rather than merely to avoid personal embarrassment, a key issue that could determine whether the Stormy Daniels, the porn star, the Daniels payoff violated election law. And now here are the weaknesses in that case. Elevating the business records charges into felonies by linking them to an underlying federal election violation would be a novel legal theory that would test the interaction of state and federal laws. That's one of the weaknesses. So what they're doing right now with the Stormy Daniels case is a little bit of a novel way of doing it. He might get out of that one for that reason, is what they're saying on this website. And here's the second weakness. Just checking the time. Trump's legal team may portray the Daniels payoff as a private matter, and the charges themselves as technical bookkeeping violations, too insubstantial to justify criminal charges against a former president. So those are the weaknesses. Fair weaknesses, but I'm very confident that Donald Trump had a long history of falsifying business records. And once you're the target of an investigation, they will find everything. They will get to the bottom of it. Okay, now this is an indictment number 2, classified documents case. Here are the strengths and weaknesses, 2 of each. Here are the first 2 strengths of this case, the classified documents case. Most legal experts, including conservatives, have described Smith's indictment as laying out an exceptionally persuasive case. It contains evidence from Trump's own statements, recordings, including one caught on tape, that he knew he was not authorized to retain classified material, but did so anyway. God, I wonder where Jack Smith got that recording. That's crazy, right? Evidence of obstruction, including instructing his aides to move boxes around or destroy security footage, and apparently suggesting to his lawyer that he concealed documents from the FBI, is similarly compelling. It's one of the strengths of the cases, the classified documents one. Okay, and here's strength number 2. Trump also seems to have publicly admitted that he knowingly held onto the documents after he left the White House. During a CNN town hall in May 2023, Trump said he took the documents because he was allowed to. In fact, the Presidential Records Act makes clear that presidential documents are property of the federal government, not an outgoing president. And multiple federal laws tightly control how classified documents can be viewed and stored. So the Presidential Records Act says he's allowed to have possession of them at the discretion of the NARA, basically, the National Archives. And National Archives said, I want him back. And he said no. And so they sent people in to get him. And he said, well, I'm keeping the rest. And then they sent more people in to get more. And now he's just kind of screwed. So anyway, here are the weaknesses of the case. While he was president, Trump had broad authority to declassify documents. If Trump could show that he declassified the records at issue before he left the White House, he may be able to undermine the charges. To date, however, there is no evidence that Trump did so. And trust me, if there was evidence, it would have come out by now. This is like the Hunter Biden laptop thing. You know, if they had evidence of some kind of malfeasance or some big super secret thing that happened, you know, that they found on the laptop, it would have come out a long time ago. It's just pictures of his duck, you know, waterfowl pictures. And I don't know why anybody even cares about this stuff. Anyway, here's the second weakness in the documents indictment, the classified documents indictment against Trump. The prosecution may have received an unlucky break when the case was assigned to Judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee who has a history of issuing rulings that are highly favorable to Trump. She will have broad authority over both the pace of the proceedings and a slew of pretrial litigation, such as potential disputes over whether information obtained from Trump's lawyers can be admitted as evidence. So that's one of the weaknesses. Yeah, Eileen Cannon is a Trump appointee. That is a conflict of interest if I've ever seen one, and she should recuse herself, but she won't, of course. So that was indictment number 2, I believe. Now, indictment number 3 is the one that they're complaining about right now, and I think it was the Jack Smith one. Yeah, the newest one. No, I'm sorry, the second from newest one. Let me read the strengths of the case. 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses. Here are the strengths of the insurrection case, the federal case Jack Smith is bringing against Trump for election interference, where Trump sent fake electors to the Capitol to stand in for the real electors. That's what he's being charged for. Trump's efforts to subvert the election were extensive, well-documented, and largely in public view. He and his allies spread lies about voter fraud and stoked the protests that led to the January 6th attack. That's one of the strengths. Here's a second strength. Many of the top aides in the Trump administration testified to the grand jury, giving investigators remarkable insight into what was happening privately in Trump's orbit during the critical 2-month period, and perhaps providing important evidence about Trump's state of mind. Pence, who resisted Trump's pressure to try to annul the election results on January 6th, and wow, imagine rejecting or imagine doing your best to fight against this stuff and refuse to like work with Pence or anything, or work with Trump or anything. I'd be afraid for my life, honestly. So Pence, who resisted his pressure to try to annul the election results on January 6th, was the most notable witness. Others included Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, his White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, I believe is how it's pronounced, his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, and his senior policy advisor, Stephen Miller. Ugh. Wait. Oh, those are witnesses against him? Is that real? Stephen Miller? Oh, my God. I had no idea Stephen Miller was a witness against Trump. If that's true, that's big. So here are the weaknesses of the case that was just released August 3rd about sending fake electors. Trump may argue that his statements about the 2020 election were protected by the First Amendment, or that in challenging the election, he was merely relying on the advice of lawyers. Okay, so this bit right here about how, you know, his statements about the 2020 election were protected. Yeah, absolutely. But when you start taking action, it's a totally different ballgame. You're perfectly free to say whatever the hell you want. Almost. But when you take actions or instruct others to take actions, you're in bad shape. Okay, so that's one of the weaknesses. He's probably going to go with the First Amendment defense, or he's going to say he was just relying on the advice of the lawyers, which is obviously false. We have evidence of that, I'm sure. And here's the second weakness. A president seeking to impede the peaceful transfer of power is unprecedented in American history, and the attempt to hold him legally accountable is similarly unprecedented. Some of the legal theories that prosecutors may rely on, like applying the conspiracy against rights statute to the context here, may raise novel issues that have rarely been tested in court. Not to mention the fact that the Supreme Court is on the side of Donald Trump, largely. In fact, a lot of them were appointed by Trump, like entirely too many. And it's a federal thing, so he can be pardoned for a lot of these federal things by anybody. You know, by the next Republican president, he can be pardoned for this. The other guys, they may be on their own on that one. I'm not sure, but Trump can certainly be pardoned by the next Republican president, whoever that happens to be. And then we've got the newest one, which is a Georgia election interference case. Just came out this morning. If you're unfamiliar with this, let's just hit this one real quick. I'm going to read the whole thing. One count of violating the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. That's a RICO Act. That's a big deal. A really big deal. So one count of violating the RICO Act. 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer. 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff here. This is linked to that phone call with Brad Raffensperger where he famously said, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. Something like that. I'm just going to type in. Here it is. I want to find a shorter version of it. Okay. So he called up Brad Raffensperger, the Attorney General of Georgia, which he was a Republican. Georgia was a Republican state run by a Republican governor. And he basically said, I want you to overturn the election for me in this conversation that happened here.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. There's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a smoking gun on this one, right?
Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
The president...
So anyways, here's the thing about these 4 charges, okay? Let me just point this out before we go any further. The two federal charges brought by Jack Smith, the one where he sent fake electors to the Capitol on January 6th, and the classified documents case, he can be pardoned for both of those by the next Republican president, and almost certainly will be. I don't think a Republican's going to take it in 2024. I think Biden's going to retain power. We'll see. But 2028, certainly, at least, he has a good chance of being pardoned by then for that. And if he can just delay like he does, he'll be fine. So we can throw out those two cases, assuming he's going to be pardoned for them by people, by the next Republican president. The classified documents case and the fake elector scheme. And then we have the hush money payments in New York. Now, New York is a famously Democratic state, right? But so there's no chance of the governor pardoning Trump for what he did there. No Republican governor can impede on the jurisdiction of of a state by pardoning for state charges. So Trump has to face down what he's facing right now in Georgia and in New York. He has no choice. He has to. But as Politico aptly pointed out, the hush money payment thing could, there are some holes in it, and it's possible that it could fall apart. It's not the strongest case in the world. It's bad, but it's not the strongest case in the world. The Georgia case, with the one that we're reading about here, the Georgia election interference case where he did that phone call, I need 11,000 votes. That one is being brought in a Republican state with a Republican governor and a Republican, attorney general, Republican everything. And Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia currently, loves Donald Trump. Even though Trump hates Brian Kemp, he still loves Donald Trump. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was pardoned for that one. So, I want to temper our good news, our celebration, with a little bit of logic and be kind of careful walking into this and not jump to assumptions about it. So let's keep reading about the election interference case. Trump's efforts to overturn his loss in the 2020 election were perhaps the most aggressive in the state of Georgia. Multiple recounts confirmed that President Joe Biden narrowly prevailed in the race for the state's 16 electoral votes. But Trump and his allies spread lies about voter fraud, urged Georgia officials and state lawmakers to reverse Biden's win, and plotted to send fake electors to Washington. That's what this is really about here. On January 2nd, 2021, Trump called Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, might I add, and urged him to, quote-unquote, find 11,780 votes. We just listened to the tape. The number needed to overcome Biden's victory. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis charged Trump and 18 of his allies for these efforts, alleging a wide-ranging criminal enterprise. Again, Trump may be pardoned by by the governor of Georgia, but these 18 other allies of Trump who were involved, not so sure about that one. And we're talking big people. We're talking Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis. A lot of lawyers were involved in this. So it's pretty big. So here's the status. Fani Willis, the prosecutor. Willis opened the criminal investigation in February 2021. She summoned many of Trump's top allies before a so-called special grand jury, which had the power to investigate crimes but not to approve criminal charges. In the summer of 2023, Willis presented her evidence to a regular grand jury, which approved a 98-page indictment on August 14th, 2023. That, like I said, that's the newest one. And it was leaked slightly before it was actually supposed to be released. It's crazy. It's really fascinating to watch what's happening with this right now, like with this case. Fani Willis was completely baselessly accused of something that is not true in any way, shape, or form, just completely fabricated out of the ether. That she had a relationship with one of the defendants that she was prosecuting or something, or there was a gang she was prosecuting and one of the gang members she had a relationship with. It's all false. It's all made up entirely. This is what happens when you sadly go against Donald Trump. Shit gets made up about you and then spreads like wildfire. So anyways, let's read here. I'm not going to bother going through the charges, but I'll just kind of give you a bottom line. He's being hit with the RICO charge. Violation of oath by a public officer, conspiracy to impersonate public officer, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. Oh boy, didn't know that one. 2 counts of false statements and writings, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, so on and so forth. I might as well read the rest. Filing false documents, conspiracy to commit filing false documents. So those are all of the charges. The indictment accuses 19 named defendants. Again, those charges I just listed may not necessarily be against Trump. Some of them are against some of his co-conspirators or whatever. But the RICO Act, I think, might apply all of them to everybody. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not a lawyer. Take everything I say here with a grain of salt. The indictment accuses 19 named defendants of criminal wrongdoing and contains a total of 41 state law felony charges. 13 of those felonies are leveled against Trump. Right, so there were 14 felonies and 13 were leveled at Trump. Got it, okay. The most serious is an alleged violation of the state's RICO Act. Commonly known, it's the Racketeer Influence in Corrupt Organizations Act. It was created in the first place to go after mobsters and stuff. People who kind of, in New York City, for example, it was certain areas of Manhattan were run by Italians and Italian families and Sicilians and stuff. And it's called the Five Families, and there's a whole history about them and everything that you can go on tours in Manhattan, and they'll tell you all about it. It's pretty interesting. But the RICO Act made it possible to charge not just the assassin that was paid to kill this guy, but also the person that hired the assassin and the person that paid for it, and everybody all along the chain. That's what the RICO Act is all about. It gets everybody. That's the point here. The law allows prosecutors to package together disparate or separate crimes if those crimes advance a single corrupt enterprise. So here are the strengths of the case. 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses. Again, this is the brand new case, so let's hit the strengths. Trump's efforts to undo the Georgia results were based on blatant falsehoods and were largely conducted out in the open. His phone call to Raffensperger was recorded. Yeah, that's a smoking gun. You can't really do much with that one, right? You're kind of SOL. 8 Republican activists. This is strength number 2. 8 Republican activists who falsely claim to be the state's presidential electors for Trump have taken immunity deals and have agreed to cooperate with Willis. Oh, boy. Uh-oh. Oh, that's not good. So Donald Trump organized this whole effort to send fake electors to the Capitol. And again, because he's being charged with the RICO Act, he can be gone after for what they did, basically, because he told them to. It's like Charles Manson told these 9 people to murder somebody, right? And who went to jail? Well, the murderers did, obviously, and Charles Manson. Because he instructed them to do something and they did it. That's similar to what we're looking at with right now. That's the way I see it anyways with Donald Trump. He instructed people to do certain things. He had a plan that he wanted to go through with. And the people who were going through with the plan have agreed to cooperate with the prosecutor against Trump. Uh-oh. That's not good. What the hell do they know? And again, the RICO Act is being used here. So, Yeah, that's pretty damning right there. Again, Republican district, Republican state, with a Republican governor who likes Donald Trump, who was maligned by Trump. Brian Kemp was, the governor of Georgia, but still likes him, would still vote for him. Oh, yeah, here you go. This is what I was looking for. Check this clip out. This is Brian Kemp, governor of Georgia, talking about Donald Trump.
That's a lot bigger than Donald Trump. It's a lot bigger than me. It's a lot bigger than the Republican Party.
New this morning, Governor Brian Kemp opens up about the investigation involving former President Donald Trump and allegations that he and his allies interfered in the 2020 presidential election.
Now, after Donald Trump interfered in the election and made that phone call to Brad Raffensperger, where, you know, I need 11,000 votes, give me a break or whatever. Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp both stood their ground against Donald Trump and refused to do anything. Like, honestly, there's nothing they could do but lie. I suppose they could just lie, but they'd be found out, like, instantly. So, I don't know what Trump was expecting from them on this point. But anyway, keep listening.
This as the grand jury started hearing evidence.
He was mad at me. I was not mad at him. I told him exactly what I could and couldn't do when it came to the election, and I followed the law and the Constitution.
Oh, boy, that's not a good sign. He was mad at me. I was not mad at him. What is wrong with you, Brian? Grow a backbone, man. Come on.
Governor Kemp went on to warn his fellow Republicans that they cannot win Georgia in 2024 if they keep pushing false claims about election fraud. And he also talked about his frustration with how the current investigation is going here in Fulton County.
Well, I'm probably more disappointed that it's taken this long. People are wondering, like, why is this taking so long?
Well, criminal prosecutions take forever, or investigations more specifically, not criminal prosecutions. Investigations take forever. That's just part of the deal. I'm sorry. You have a right to a speedy trial. Once the investigation is done, or at least partially done, and you're charged with a crime, you have a right to a speedy trial. You can get through it pretty quickly. And that's actually a unique thing to, a lot of the parts of the world. The right to a speedy trial and the right to not sit in jail without a charge, that's in the Constitution, without being charged for something. That's in the Constitution, and it's extremely important, extremely valuable. I don't remember the numbers. Again, take everything I say with a grain of salt, okay? Don't quote me on this. I think something like 35 to 50% of the people that are in jail right now in Brazil are being held without charge. They're in there and they haven't been charged with anything. What the hell is going on? It's the same, like, across the world. I mean, the U.S. prison system is about as bad as it gets, honestly. And it's just a machine that pumps in as many people as possible and pumps out as many slave laborers as possible. Yes, that's right. Prisoners are slaves. So I'm not, puffing up the U.S. prison system here or anything. I'm just saying it's unique in the fact that we have a right to a speedy trial according to the Constitution, and we have a right to not be held without charge, basically, if you have a felony, if the charge might be a felony. So anyway, it gets a little more murky with misdemeanors, but that's a story for another day. Why is this taking so long? Investigations take forever. That's just part of the deal. I'm sorry.
Probably more disappointed that it's taken this long. People are wondering, like, why is this taking so long?
He knows that. He knows it takes forever to investigate. He's full of it by asking this.
Why haven't we had resolution? So I think that just sows distrust in the system, which is unfortunate. That's not what people should be feeling, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. So it is, in my eyes, frustrating, but we'll see what she comes out with.
So he's kind of carrying water for Trump right now, isn't he? This is the governor of Georgia. Dude was maligned and hated by Donald Trump, and he's carrying water for him right now. It's an embarrassment.
At the appropriate time.
Meanwhile, we learned the Georgia Supreme Court has dismissed Trump's petition to get this investigation squashed. All of the justices agreed the circumstances of the case were not extraordinary enough for them to interfere. They also say Mr. Trump's legal team did not provide the facts or law necessary to mandate the disqualification of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. So you have Grand Jury A. They're going to hear a variety of cases on Mondays and Tuesdays from now all the way through September 1st. And then Grand Jury B, they'll meet on Thursdays and Fridays. One of those panels could vote to indict. No evidence in the Trump probe was presented during Monday's meeting. And you
Interesting, yeah. So that, I guess that's basically the end of the video. But yeah, that was fascinating, actually. Kind of a fascinating breakdown. I'm really disappointed to see that Brian Kemp is carrying water for Trump. Like, grow a backbone, man. Come on, really. This is just embarrassing at this point. The dude insulted you. It's like Ted Cruz, you know? Donald Trump insulted Ted Cruz's wife, called her ugly and all of these other names. And what is Ted Cruz out there doing? Kissing his feet now. It's embarrassing. How does Ted Cruz still have a wife after that, honestly? Okay, I'll tell you this. If I was in that situation, I would expect my wife to leave if I didn't stand by her side. That is part of the deal. When you get married, for better or worse, sickness and health, until death do you part, you stand up for your partner. You are partners. That's in the name, right? I was reading the strengths of the case, I think. Okay, here we go. Trump's efforts to undo the Georgia results were based on blatant falsehoods and were largely conducted out in the open. His phone call to Raffensperger was recorded. I have a big list of things of videos I want to download, and I'm adding that video of Raffensperger. I'm sorry, I'm adding that video of Kemp to the list of videos I want to download. I haven't done it yet. This is a video of Donald Trump saluting a North Korean soldier. What is wrong with this guy? He has no clue what's going on. Okay, so I got to get that one. This one is funny. We're taking a little bit of a detour just for laughs here, but just listen. This is Laura Ingraham. People claim this is a bit. I'm honestly not convinced.
To the politics and all those woke storylines in so many shows today. You know, I was watching an episode of You where measles came up.
Wait. When did I mention measles?
I don't know. It was on You.
What?
So, in case you haven't caught on, You is the name of a TV show on Netflix. YOU.
What was on me? What are you talking about? Is Raymond even hearing what I'm saying? I never had the measles.
Was on You.
We never did a measles and vaccine episode. Is this a joke?
I know.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It was on You. It was on You.
Raymond, I've never had measles. What are you talking about? This is stupid.
It was an episode of a show, Laura.
What's it called?
You.
What is he talking about?
It's called You.
I've never done a show on measles. I just completely give up. We gotta get out of this.
It's a show
I give up.
called You on Netflix.
People say this is a bit. I'm honestly, really, truthfully not convinced. I think she really is that dumb. But anyway, I got to download that one. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, yeah, this is Malcolm X. Yeah, he's interesting in his own right. What's this one? Oh, this is a subway station on 157th Street, Manhattan, being flooded. And people walking through it. This is crazy.
What happened yesterday at the 157th Street subway station was alarming to see even...
Dude, why the hell are you walking through this? Let me give you a little advice, okay? This is free. Don't walk through standing water. Certainly not water that is in a subway station. Are you kidding me? Do you know why it's brown? Do you think that there's like soil at the bottom of the subway thing? No. It's brown because it's dirty with subway junk all over it. Don't crawl through subway water, okay? Don't do it.
Even for seasoned commuters, look at this mess. People wading through waist-deep water. So could this have been prevented? Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles with the...
This is from like a year or two ago. I don't remember when this happened.
Story.
That's just insane, dude. Okay, so that was the other video I got to get. What's this one? Wait. Oh, yeah, this is Ryan Walters. Okay, that was insane. Another Ryan Walters one I got to get. Oh, and this is Greg Locke's original video that made him go viral, like, at first.
You know, we hear
this is 2015.
You know, we hear a lot these days about so-and-so is coming out of the closet. We hear that phrase all the time. Years ago, it was very strange terminology, but now it's like a badge of heroism and honor. He or she came out of the closet. They're coming out of the closet, and everybody applauds.
Well, that's how it should be, but sadly, people don't applaud. They attack people who are coming out of the closet as gay or trans or whatever right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, let it be forever known from this day forward that Greg Locke is officially coming out of the closet. I'm coming out about the fact that I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ because it's the power of God unto salvation.
Like anybody gives a shit. Love Jesus all you want, okay? God, he's just cringy. What's it? Oh, this is James Randi exposing Peter Popov. That was really good, too. Okay. So, yeah, this one gets to be in the list of things I need to download. Trump telling Raffensperger I need 11,780 votes.
11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
Yeah, love it. Love it to death. Keeping that one. Anyways, let's keep reading this. I got through the first strength here. 8 Republican activists. This is strength number 2 of the Georgia election fraud case, the 11,780 votes case. 8 Republican activists who falsely claim to be the state's presidential electors for Trump have taken immunity deals and have agreed to cooperate with Fani Willis, the prosecutor. That's a pretty big deal. Now, here are the weaknesses. As I mentioned, my own personal opinion, one of the weaknesses is the fact that Brian Kemp will do anything for Donald Trump. He is a Trump lover through and through. Anything except for violate the Constitution, apparently, which is not good. So he could pardon Trump for any of these charges. So here are the weaknesses as listed by Politico. A local prosecutor charging a former president with election interference is unprecedented in American history. Look, I don't care if it's unprecedented. Why does it keep going back to that? Like, it makes no difference if it's never happened or not. Things happen, you know, for the first time all the time. Trump may claim he is immune from being prosecuted for actions he took while he was still president. Okay, he could argue that, but he's incorrect. He is not immune. There is nothing in the Constitution that says that he is immune from being prosecuted for actions he took while still president. Like, that's completely made up. Trump might argue that his statements about the Georgia results are protected by the First Amendment or that he lacked criminal intent because he genuinely believed he won the election. Yeah, he could argue that, but I don't view that as a weakness because that was addressed on page, I'm not sure which page of the indictment. It was near the top. I don't care if, yes, you do. You have the free speech to say whatever you want. Absolutely. That's not what we're arguing here. You sent fake electors into the Capitol to whatever. And also, freedom of speech does have limits. When we're talking about the I need 11,780 votes thing, he's using the power that he had to influence, to change the results of an election. The speech he was using, it's like, again, Charles Manson. He used his words to tell people to go kill somebody, and he went to jail for that. If Charles Manson can go to jail for it, so can Donald Trump. No two-tier justice system in this country. I mean, there is one, but there shouldn't be. Anyway, there's a little section here. Who could pardon him? In Georgia, the only entity with the power to grant pardons or other forms of clemency is the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, a 5-member panel appointed by the governor. I didn't know that. Oh, that's super interesting. So Kemp could not pardon Trump, but he could appoint people who would pardon Trump. That's an interesting little twist that I didn't consider. So anyways, yeah, that's where we stand currently with all of Trump's indictments. We're at number 4 right now, as of the moment this is being filmed. We'll see that. We'll see if this goes any further. I'm sure he's gonna probably get more indictments. We'll see what they entail, if they have any weight to them, if they're in states in which the governors are incapable of pardoning him or won't pardon him or whatever. We'll see. I am personally not, I'm not convinced that Trump will spend a single day in jail. Not one day. But anyway, yeah, we'll see. We'll see where this goes, and I'll keep you guys updated. Let's take a look at Super Chats real quick. City Rail Dude, hey, Owen, as a non-American in 2016, everyone's saying that Russia rigged the election with no consequences, but in 2020, Trump's in trouble for saying that the election was rigged. What's the difference? Trump's not in trouble for saying the election was rigged, first of all. And second, the election was not rigged in the way that Trump was saying. I know your question's in good faith, so I'm going to take it in good faith and answer it in good faith. The election was legitimately, actually interfered with by Russia in 2016. The probe that Robert Mueller led did not exonerate Trump like he says. It did not show no collusion like Trump keeps saying. It actually did show collusion with Russia. It actually did show that Russia interfered, as a matter of fact, if you read the thing. But he's got these propaganda machines whirring, and when you hear Russia, 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 the next term you hear is no collusion, right? So anyways, the difference is it legitimately did happen in 2016. I mean, we have evidence of it. They were even promoting Bernie Sanders at one point because Russia's troll farms, because they just wanted to cause Hillary's numbers to go down, basically, whatever it took. They created the Bernie Bros or whatever. They have a bot army on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media, bot farms, that go in there and harass Hillary supporters as Bernie supporters. So, anyways, there was actual election tampering there. Does it invalidate the election? Not really, but we should take it seriously. Was the 2020 election rigged at all, to any degree? No. There was no interference. There was no, what was the word you used? There's no rigging. There was none of that. And that's not what Trump's in trouble for saying anyways. Thank you for the super chat, City Rail Dude. I appreciate that.